Hi, my name is John Serafini. I'm the CEO of HawkEye 360. My background is as a venture capitalist, as a U.S. Army infantry officer for a number of years, a West Point graduate. And I went to Harvard Business School and the Kennedy School of Government, and I told myself, this is 15 or so years ago, that I wanted to be a venture capitalist who built companies that really mattered. And for me, what matters is national security, defense, intelligence. And so I set off into a niche that didn't really exist in 2007 when I left grad school to be a venture capitalist focused on these kind of dual-use national security technology companies. One of the critical areas of growth for us, alongside artificial intelligence and cybersecurity and robotics for technologies with clear overlap between enterprise and defense, is obviously space. During the course of my career, I've built 10 dual-use national security companies. HawkEye 360 was the last of them, or the latest, that we started back in 2016 timeframe. Normally, my MO was to start the company, run it for the first couple of years, then go hire a great CEO and move to the board. And as I got to that point with HawkEye, I just couldn't bear to have someone else run the company. So I decided to leave venture for a while. But I've had an opportunity to see a lot of venture capitalists and a lot of venture capital firms. Serafini is amongst the very best of them. And I'm extremely proud to be a part of the portfolio and to be a friend to Mark, who I've known for the better part of a decade. So let me tell you a little bit about HawkEye 360 and what we're building. We've raised $375 million worth of private capital, a variety of great financial investors like Serafini, which co-led our D round alongside Insight Partners. Strategic investors, we just closed on Lockheed yesterday, Raytheon, Airbus, Leidos, Jacobs, etc., a variety of sovereigns as well, which I won't name, but it's a phenomenal cap table who care about seeing unique things be done in space. For us, we're building satellites that detect RF. This is spectrum. This is radio frequency. So emitters like a satellite phone or a radar system or a push-to-talk radio system, they can all be detected from space, provided that they're above about a watt in power. If it's between 100 or so megahertz and upwards of 18 gigahertz, with our satellites flying in space, uniquely in clusters of 3, as you see, we can detect that signal, we can geolocate it, we can process it, and we can analyze it. This is inherently a military/intelligence function that has been done for generations in the classified environments by countries like the UK and the US and others. But it's never been done in the commercial world until HawkEye set off to do this. For us, what was really important was 3 things that we built this company around. Thing 1 was to control the entire value chain of our piece of the world. So we design our spacecraft, we build them in-house, we launch with partners like SpaceX and Rocket Lab, but we operate the constellation ourselves. We process all of that data, we perform the geolocation, we do the data science work to convert that into an actionable insight, and I'm going to share a few of those with you. We wanted to not just produce a unique data source, but be capable of being across the value chain to deliver something of significant value to the end customer. That was one. The second was we wanted to go where the money is. And to us, the money and the mission and the passion is in national security, defense, and intelligence. But you can't, as I like to say, minor in U.S. or international government sales. You have to be built from the ground up with the DNA to sell to these type of customers because, frankly, they are the most challenging customers in the world. They have the most difficult missions in the world, and they have the smallest margin for error. So if you're able to sell to those types of customers, I can promise you, you can sell to any customer in the world. But you have to look a certain way in order to be attractive to them. So we wanted to focus there. That was our second tenet. The third is when you're selling to the National Reconnaissance Office or the equivalent around the world, you need to understand what service means. And it can't just be words on a wall that you say are your values. You have to compose yourself with people who have served in the past. And that was our third tenet. We wanted to staff ourselves with a majority of folks who had served, whether that was in uniform for the U.S. government or for others, had been in the defense industrial base, or had worked on Capitol Hill. It was people who understand the unique missions of our customers and will make sure that mission accomplishment is priority number one. So let me tell you a little bit more about what we do. This gives you a sense of how our satellites fly. They fly in clusters of 3, so one in front, one in back, and the third that oscillates back and forth. We have 7 clusters of 3-ball satellites flying today, so that's 21 satellites. We're financed by virtue of our investors' contributions to get to 20 clusters long term. We think we'll be there in about 2.5 years or so. 60 satellites, that provides a revisit rate anywhere in the world of about every 15 minutes or so. Today, our average revisit rate is about 40 to 60 minutes anywhere on the Earth. And our latency, the time in which we collect the data to the time in which we deliver that to the end customer, so it's been downlinked, processed, analyzed, QC, QA'd, et cetera, that's about 30 to 60 minutes for the highest priority collections. So to give you a sense of what we do, I figured I would start on a very tactical level. As I mentioned to you earlier, we detect signals. Signals can come from a variety of different things. In this case, we're going to look at vessels. Vessels emit a number of different signals. As you would imagine, they have an AIS signal that's legally mandated for certain vessels across a certain size. But all vessels, by and large, have navigational radar systems, X-band, S-band radars. They have push-to-talk radio systems. They have L-band satellite phones. They have emergency beacons, etc. And when vessels that are doing illicit things, smuggling, drug trafficking, human smuggling, oil sanction violations, etc., they turn off their AIS, obviously, because then they go dark to law enforcement, to Coast Guard, to navies, etc. In this case, this is a vessel, I believe it's the Voyager 2. It left a port in Turkey. It then had its AIS on, so it was trackable by a variety of different AIS collectors. But then it turned its AIS off, as you can see, just east of Cyprus. That vessel has now gone dark to everyone. We then picked it up with I believe it was a VHF signal hit down at the port in Tartus. We estimate there was some smuggling activity involved, and there's an image that we've been able to collect from our partner at Maxar with an estimation that that vessel was indeed in Tartus at that point in time. It then left, went south of Cyprus, turned its AIS back on, and now it's presumably seeable by Coast Guard. What did it do in between? That's the intelligence that we are uniquely capable of producing. So that's at a very tactical level of us identifying a very specific vessel and tracking it. Here's more of a macro level. In this case, this is the Arabian Sea just off the coast of Oman. Oman is their economic exclusion zone is in the lighter color just before the border, but you can see all the different signal hits that we have. What these vessels do is they collect up on the border of the EEZ with all of their signals on, and then they turn off their AIS, go dark, enter into another country's EEZ, and illegally fish. In this case, they're illegally fishing for squid. We were able to fuse a couple of different modalities of intelligence together. In this case, we used NASA satellites to detect light, which is often used when you're squid fishing at night, and then also to correlate that to the X-band radars and VHF push-to-talk radio system hits that we got, that we then correlated to the lack of AIS, provide all this intelligence together and provide to our customers. These are degraded images and graphics I would mention because of the classification of this data. Everything that we actually do in the U.S. is controlled by ITAR, and we have to get export licenses in order to be able to sell overseas and or degrade the data such that it's not definable of exactly what's going on. While we do the majority of our work in the defense and intelligence and national security environment, we do care deeply about sustainability and humanitarian missions. In this case, we're using our satellites to detect the presence of artisanal mining in Niger. In this case, we're detecting the presence of Wagner Group. They often use L1, L2 GPS interference and jamming around their locations. We were able to identify a Mi-24 helicopter that was tied to the Wagner Group at a gold processing facility in a gold mine in the middle of the Central African Republic. I'm not going to go into the work in which we do with the rest of Ukraine, but I think you can probably make some assumptions. Lastly, to talk more about our national security work, this is the border region between India and China. Back in June 2020 timeframe, we were flying our satellites consistently over this region, and we saw a very meaningful buildup of military signals, which we then tipped and queued to Planet satellites, in this case, in order to tell Planet, hey, you should be taking images over this region. There's some interesting activity. Lo and behold, there was a brigade-sized Chinese element on the border that was unbeknownst to all parties. And we put that information into the public domain in June. And it's led to a very significant book of business for us supporting our Indian allies. Our products generally are in three buckets. RF GEO is kind of our flagship. That's when we're detecting signals of interest, be it X-band radar systems or emergency beacons, and we're putting on a geospatial platform for our customers to engage with. Other customers that are more sophisticated and have a background in signals, we give them and sell them the raw IQ data, and they can do the processing and the analysis themselves. A still separate group of customers which don't necessarily have the time or the sophistication to engage with the raw data or even RF GEO. For those customers, we produce for them a turnkey data analytic, and we help them implement it in the field. So I hope that that's a helpful summary of the work that we're doing to help make nations and citizens better protected and to have access to more fulsome intelligence. But I'd also assure you that we're working on a variety of environmental and sustainability applications that make us all happy and proud to be a part of this great company. So thank you very much for your time.